right. Welcome to another episode of Pacific Rims. I'm Rick Bucher. That is Greg Stolt. I'm going to let you know everything about our special guest, Craig Brown, in just a second, but I have to acknowledge our sponsor. Pacific Rims is sponsored by the New Air Club, a brand new door-to-door private jet service. What sets New Air apart is that it does more than arrange your private jet and crew. They will handle ground transportation, hotel, catering requests, you name it. And because they bundle their service, you can be sure the trip will cost exponentially less. Look, not everyone can afford private jet travel, but for those who can, make sure that you're getting as much luxury for every dollar as you deserve. All right, Craig Brown, former technical director for the NBA in China and director of basketball operations for the NBA in Hong Kong. He's also worked as an assistant coach and director of operations at both Florida A&M and the University of Central Florida. And before all that, he was a stud at the University of Florida, the second leading scorer on the Gators' 94 Final Four team, and an SEC legend. All right. Craig, do you have me? We see him walking. I have the feeling, Greg, that he is searching for a connection right now.
Craig, can you hear me?
Yeah, I heard you, Greg.
So how about I take a lead at this? Craig,
Yeah.
how's everything going?
Besides not being able to get on clearly, everything is great.
So thank you for coming to joining the show today. You know, with your background in coaching and working in Asia, and the topic of conversation of this podcast is basketball in Asia, I thought your background suited perfectly for what we're trying to talk about and trying to educate the world on. And so thank you for your time, and we look forward to hearing insights from you.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys.
So, you know, starting off, I think our background obviously is from the University of Florida, but from a work standpoint, we worked together in the NBA. I was in China, you were in Hong Kong. My work was mostly in China. I didn't really do a lot outside of China, and you kind of covered Asia from Japan down to Australia. Tell us about your experience working in NBA Asia, and some of the things that you did.
Well, working in NBA Asia, it was a great experience. I loved it, every minute of it. We primarily worked with younger kids for the junior NBA program, covering the 6 different markets over there: Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Philippines, which, you know, they're super huge basketball fans. So they know more about the NBA probably than a lot of people here in the States.
Craig, can you hear me now?
I heard that, Rick. Yep.
Excellent. All right. I'm just wondering, how would you describe the state of basketball in China today?
When I was there with the basketball in China, I mean, it's competitive. We were able to work with some young players there in Shandong. Love the game of basketball. I would probably say the level would be more on a lower level, say here in the States. But the kids worked extremely hard, and you know, I had a great setup there where I was in Shandong. You know, to work with those coaches and young players every day.
What a lot of people may not know is when we opened up the NBA academies in China, Shandong was one of the strategic locations that we thought we needed to have a presence. And if you look at players from China in the CBA or some that have moved on to the NBA or higher levels, a lot of them are from Shandong province, which is just south of Beijing. And a lot of them are from north of Beijing in the northeast of China. So Craig was in Shandong. He spent, I can't remember the number of years, but it was a location that had a history of a lot of great basketball success, but also is a very politically ran sports environment where they certainly appreciated having coaches come in, but we certainly, as an MBA, had a vision and goals and objectives that weren't easily aligned with what they were trying to do. Craig, from your experience in Shandong, tell us about, you know, some of the things that you thought they did well and some of the things that you think they could have done a little bit better to develop their athletes.
Well, I definitely feel like the athletes needed to play more games. I think that was one of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest things that might be holding back some of those young players. They're not playing enough games, but competitive practices daily. You practice pretty much 6 days a week, and all throughout the province, there's talent, there's a passion for the game. And when we were able to get the talent to come into Shandong from the 17 different areas in the Shandong province, those kids, they were competitive. We got them probably around age 14 or 15, and watched them grow for about 3-4 years, and then after the fourth year, it became like the national games, which is kind of like the Olympics here, and we went and gathered up at an Olympic Village type of setup, and competed in that there over there.
Greg,
What needs to be done to for players from China to take it into the to make it to the next level, to make it to the NBA?
What do they need to do?
Yep.
Well, I think the locals need to probably listen to the foreigners a little bit more, to be able to advance, to be able to introduce some new things. They're always open for new ideas, but it takes the coaches and the governing body there to open up to you, until you prove to them that you have something real that you can offer that's going to benefit them to winning basketball games. I think there's a lot of pressure over there from the top to the bottom. So from the top down to the coaches, and then from the coaches to the players. You can feel it every day. You definitely can feel it when we go to events, and I just feel like if they listened a little bit more, not necessarily saying, hey, you got to buy into everything that the NBA, or because I'm from America, you need to listen to me. Not so much because of that, because again, I was noticing and experiencing the pressure there. So it's like, why am I going to listen to this outside person who I don't know yet, when my livelihood is on the line coaching these players? And if I don't win, then I might lose my job. So they were kind of a little stubborn at first, but when they saw that I was able to add some things in practice, whether it be press defense, whether it be man-to-man defense, trapping, different things of that nature, then they started to open up and allow you to have more input into what was going on. I think that's one of the biggest things that I faced while I was over there. So I felt for the local coaches, and then I also, felt for us as the NBA. Like, we're over here to find the talent, to work with the talent, but yet our hands were kind of tied to a degree, because of what I just mentioned in terms of, the pressure from above.
How was the Hong Kong experience compared to the China experience? Was it how different was it?
How was Hong Kong experience compared to China?
Yep. The basket, and from a
Uh,
basketball perspective.
Well, living and working in Hong Kong, there really wasn't much basketball going on there until we jumped outside and went to those different markets, as I mentioned before. The level of basketball knowledge and competitiveness in the Philippines is above everybody over there, I believe. If they had the size that China has, I really think, the Philippines would be, that main, location over there. So, it was interesting. The other markets there, the kids are just learning how to play. Like in Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore. Singapore, they got a great setup over there, great facilities. Talent level, you might have a kid or two that's from the States. Parents are working over there, so you had an opportunity to work with them. And then when I got up into China, that's when things changed, and I had to adjust. I had to win over the coach's trust. Again, because of the pressure that was put on them, and I don't want to keep saying that, but I ran into that every single day,
Yeah.
especially when we went to events and play games.
Yeah.
So in China, we had the NBA had a kind of a goal of an objective with the academies is ultimately to identify NBA talent. You coaches that came over had maybe this envision of you're going to come over, you're going to coach the way that you think you can do, or scout the way you think you can do to identify and develop talent to become NBA players. Then we had the partners on ground, the academy, the sports system that we were working with that had their viewpoint of how this all was going to work for them. What was the learning curve for you moving to Genon? You're looking for players that maybe you can send to the Global Academy in Australia. You're probably scouting at 12 years old, because any kid that's 17 or 18 years old is probably signed to a club already. What was the learning curve for you and kind of trying to figure all that out? Expectations different from all angles.
The learning curve, I think the biggest thing, again, working with the coaches, earning their trust. I walked into the first practice and I made sure that I had my goatee, showing. So therefore I could show the coaches that I was an older coach. And to be completely honest, that was very, very helpful to me right from the very beginning, to be able to share my ideas, share my thoughts, things of that nature. Our MBA curriculum that we were fortunate enough to have and use while we were over there. Um, when we would go to Australia, we had good talent, but our talent didn't have a whole lot of time to work with one another. Kids were coming from all over China for a short period of time, so I felt that was a challenge to the kids as well as the coaches, but yet and still the experience of going down and playing down in Australia against the teams from Africa, India, and the global academy down there. I thought the experience for the players was great. I really felt like, once they had that experience, it was eye opening. They saw the competition level that was, out in the world. I really felt like that was something that those kids could bring back to China, and benefit from as they continue to progress.
I'm wondering, Greg and Craig, if you can hear me, the of all the Asian countries, which is the one that you would bet on to be the next global power, to kind of step and emerge as a force in basketball on a global stage?
Who's the next country to
Yeah, if
be?
the Asian country that you think is poised to take that next step.
I would say probably some of the places, just by watching players. I wasn't able to make it to South Korea or spend a lot of time there in Japan, but I think they have and allow more of a outside influence to contribute to their player development.
Hmm.
Again, I'll come back to the Philippines, who are super super passionate about the game. They have a lot of different leagues, adult leagues, professional leagues in the Philippines. So that's inspiration for the young players. They can see higher level talent, and have something to strive for. Indonesia was another area that was really investing in basketball and developing programs. I wouldn't say youth academies, but they were really invested in helping their young kids, compete and hopefully grow to be like or even better than the Philippines.
Other than the coaches accepting more outside influence or direction, what do you think China basketball needs to elevate itself?
I think those kids need to get out, to have experience playing against other competition outside of China. Yes, we went to some of the sites to where we played against other NBA Academy teams, and I think if we had more of that going on, to where they were able to get out and compete against other teams, can kind of gauge their level of ability, and okay, I need to get better, I need to get
Hmm.
stronger because I played against the guys from Africa, or I got to work on my skill set because of the kids that I was able to see on the global academy team down in Australia. I think that would help these young guys over there tremendously, and it would help the coaches as well, because they would have access to seeing other things that are taking place, and they could utilize for the growth of the game there in China. Also, it's a little thing, but a big thing to me. Having fun playing a game of basketball. I mean, that's why most kids in the U.S. We play the game because we loved it, but more importantly, because we were having fun. And I mentioned that to one of the higher ups where I was working at, and he immediately challenged me and said, "No, no, it's not about fun. It's not about fun." And so he missed my message, and he wasn't really willing to buy into it. And so I think that leads to maybe some of those young Chinese kids maybe getting a little burnt out. Um, while they're coming up and growing and learning. So I think those areas right there would help tremendously with the level of competition. Those kids, they work their tails off. Their skill level, they're not. They got players there in China that can do all the things that somebody would do in an individual workout. But when you put them in a game, maybe the IQ doesn't transfer over, and so you're only seeing a kid that looks like, okay, you can tell he's been doing some individual workouts, but he really doesn't know how to flow and fit in with the flow of the game
Yeah,
if he doesn't have the ball in his hands, etc.
makes sense.
Going back to your time in the NBA office in Hong Kong, you would do basketball programs in the Philippines. You do basketball programs in other countries where basketball was kind of moving up and growing. Were the programs similar that you did in the Philippines as they were in Vietnam or Malaysia that didn't quite have the basketball history?
Yeah, the program was rolled out the same way. We would go in initially, and we have a big tip off event to where the biggest thing for our Hong Kong office was the numbers. How many kids could we reach? How many kids could we touch? How many kids could we get a basketball in their hands, possibly for the very first time? I remember being in Malaysia, and we were getting ready to start an event. I had a ball in my hands. I was trying to loosen the kids up a little bit, and I tossed the ball to one of the kids that was nearby, and he immediately got defensive and like to protect himself. And it was because he probably had never caught a ball before. So when we first get to these countries, we could possibly have 700 kids that came out to participate, and we might only have 3 or 4 basketball courts for all these kids to work to work at. The NBA did a great job of cookie cutting the chopping the court up. You might have at one basket shooting. You have layups at the other end. You have ladder footwork on one of the sidelines. You'd have passing in the middle of the court. You'd have ball handling, dribbling on one of the baselines, and it made it work. And had a good flow. And then we made progressions from there to where, okay, we identified, let's say, the top 60 out of that 700, and we invited them back to come for more experience, and then to continue to try to dwindle that down until we got like the better 10 kids out of those different countries, when the programs were coming to an end.
Craig, we're going to let you go. Thank you for fighting through the technical issues that we had.
Hopefully sometime we could cross paths. If we get this AUBL thing going and we need to start putting kids into positions in the U.S., you'll be the first guy I go to.
Yeah.
I would love the opportunity. I appreciate you guys having me on, Rick. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast with you. And again, I had a blast working and living over there in Southeast Asia and China, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Mission accomplished. There was some interesting stuff in there, in spite of the technical difficulties. There were some things that honestly I was aware of when I was over there in the early mid 2000s. It was the same thing. It was the difficulty of building relationships where outside influences were trusted, and largely because of that pressure, and also the idea that you were just supposed to work, and that idea of the game being fun and finding fun ways to do the work. It just culturally was a different mindset. And
for me, For me, working with, we had 12 or maybe 15 coaches at one time all over China. And the NBA's expectations for the academy, coaches working in each one of these locations, the reality of the coaches living in each one, which were all very different depending on where you're at, depending on the group that we partnered with, some all positives and negatives.
Yeah.
And then the partner, okay, well, we have these coaches from America. Some would utilize them and let them run and go, and others would just kind of want them on the side clapping.
Yeah.
And for me to manage that was really challenging, particularly because China's huge, and it's quite spread apart. And you could only meet with the guys face to face so much to kind of work with them and make them feel secure in their position. So
Yeah.
it really was a interesting. And then on top of that, the term of, let's identify NBA players because Yao Ming's played in China. There's got to be another one. I don't think that's a fair expectation.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a challenge. But again, it's explanatory as to why we haven't had more Yao Mings. It's why, if you just look at the size and the resources that China has, the fact that Craig believes that Japan or South Korea could take that next step, that should never be in my mind,
Yeah.
should never be the case ahead of China.
Yeah.
It's just, but understanding, and you probably can relate to this, like basketball is its own culture as a sport, right? And it has a sort of a unique mindset, and your success in it requires a certain mindset and approach to it, right? Whether it's creativity, whether it's the idea of having fun, whether it's not being as regimented as, say, playing football or some other sports. And if the culture that you're in doesn't embrace that kind of thinking, then it can be a challenge to reach the highest levels. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
which is interesting because if you look at, I mean, you look to your point, you look at baseball here in Japan, and I walk around. I mean, I'm in Japan now. I walk around the parks. I go watch baseball. Kids are on the diamond on the weekends. They're on the diamond from like 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. They're training, training, training. They play in the afternoon, repeat the next day. And I'm like, man, that does not look like it would be something. And I loved baseball. It was my dream as a kid to be a baseball player, but that doesn't look like it'd be something I'd want to do. But here it's proven to work.
Yeah.
It is as good of a baseball playing country as there is in the world, and they've obviously have some of the best players that have ever come out of here. Basketball, I think it is a little bit of its own thing where you got to let the players be creative and go out there and have fun. And it really does rely on five players on the court plus a couple players off the bench gelling and play and working to get together as a cohesive unit. And if you're robotic and it's a grind, you probably will have a hard time finding success.
Yeah, agreed. Well, speaking of Japan, we've had a change with the men's national team in Japan. Tom Hovas has been let go, and he has been replaced by. I'm going to let you take the first shot at it. Is it Dai Okatani?
Dai Okatani.
Okay. He's the head coach of and I'm going to try this one, the Ryukyu Golden Kings.
Correct.
So he is now also the head coach of the men's national team. I'll turn it to you. Why do you think that they went with Okatani to replace Tom Hovas?
So I think it's simply that Coach Dai has been incredibly successful. I don't know how many years he's coached in the B League here, but everywhere he's coached and every level he's been successful. He's been down in Ryukyu for a couple of years, and they're either winning the championship here, or they're in the top 3 or 4 teams in the league, in a very competitive league. He has experience coaching abroad. He went to school in the United States. He's a team manager for Arizona State under Coach Rob Evans. So he has experience abroad. He also can speak English. And to me, I think he's a great selection for the national team program here. Now,
Yeah.
a lot of pressure coming up here in the next couple of weeks, but that's another thing. I think big picture, he's a very good hiring.
Well, what do you mean by there's pressure coming up in the next couple of weeks?
So right off the bat, we're about to enter a FIBA window here in Asia. So the pro leagues take a break. China, Japan, Korea, Chinese Taipei, they all play each other. So this will be the second round. Last round, Japan played Chinese Taipei and beat them under Coach Tom Hovass, and now they're going to play China and they're going to play Korea in Okinawa next, I think, in a week and a half, which I'll be attending.
Okay.
China lost to Korea, and they're going to be coming in hungry. And
Yeah.
Korea, who is quite solid, they're going to be coming in hungry as well.
Challenging, no doubt. And as anybody who listened to, I think it was our previous episode, but has been following the saga of the Japanese men's national team, Tom Hovass supposedly wasn't in favor with Rui Hachimura, Los Angeles Lakers power forward, and I'd say safely the best player ever to come out of Japan. And then we heard, or at least it was reported, that Dai Okatani wasn't necessarily a Hachimura favorite either. Now, we haven't heard anything from Hachimura on Hovass being let go or the hiring of Okatani. But I don't know that anybody's questioning that he and Hovass didn't see eye to eye or didn't see basketball the same way. I would have hoped that with the hiring of Okatani, that we would have seen something from Rui about, hey, looking forward to playing for Coach Dai, or something that would confirm that he's good with the switch, since the reason for the switch is being placed on his doorstep. How do you see things when it comes to the change and what it means for Rui playing for the national team?
So that would have been a good signal, I think, for the world here. My guess is Rui was aware of the hiring before it was made happen. Also, maybe he probably knew who the list of candidates who may have been before the hiring happened.
Yeah.
And so, from my perspective, he was aware of the hire. I would assume he was aware of the hire and he was okay with it. And from his perspective and his side, he doesn't necessarily have to signal the world, "Hey, congrats, coach. I look forward to working with you."
Right.
I think being silent is probably the right situation. I'm not a PR expert, but probably
The
being silent
politically
is not
correct
a bad.
approach.
Yeah, it's not a bad approach.
Well, actually, the ideal, if I'm going to offer my media training expertise, it's, you could have said, "Hey, really enjoyed playing for Coach Hovass, and but I look forward to continuing on with Coach Okatani." That would have been
Yeah.
the ideal. Do you? Let me ask you this: do you think if Rui was completely on board with Tom Hovass, do you think a change would have been made? I guess I'm asking, was that the impetus for this? Because I look at Hovass's success overall, and what an established person he is in basketball in Japan, and it's hard for me to see how you wouldn't go forward with him unless there was an issue about your best player not wanting to play.
Yeah, and only knowing there's a situation between Rui, the JBA, and Hovass. Only knowing that publicly, and that's all I know.
Yeah.
With the success that Tom had with the women's national team, he had success in the women's pro level here, and had success in the men's national team. I think, from my perspective, and I'm not local. I come here. I know the league. I know coaches and teams here. My perspective is he probably, based on his track record, he probably had a place in Japan basketball for the rest of his life. And that's just me thinking from 1,000 feet away. And so obviously this happened probably because of the situation between the three parties.
Yeah. All right. I want to switch to one of the other big stories going on right now, which is the gambling allegations when it comes to college basketball in the United States, and a connection to Chinese basketball and the Chinese Basketball Association. And I just want to start here because I'm not aware of previous issues when it came to gambling and the Chinese Basketball Association. Has there been other incidents prior to this, or is this a first?
There has, not to my knowledge, in the CBA, there's been any issues with gambling. Obviously, always people say the refs are bad here and there and they're cheating, but that could just be bad refereeing. But from a team, a player perspective, I've not been aware of anything that's happened here in China.
And why do you think that there was a connection between the the gamblers, the Chinese Basketball Association, and college basketball in the United States?
So from my understanding, it was a player, an American player in the CBA that was working with game fixers in the US. And if you look at the CBA and you look at the style of play and you look at the import players that play in the CBA, the guard players are dominant, and they more than just being dominant, they have the ball in their hands and they have an expectation to score a lot in
Hmm.
order for their team to win, or even if they don't win, for them to keep their position, they have to score.
Yeah.
And so I think it was people, maybe game fixers in the US that understood the CBA, that had a relationship with a player, that said, hey, look, if you, this quarter, if you don't quite do as much as you normally would, it's not the game, it's not going to screw up your stats, just this quarter, make sure the score is this, or don't do your normal work, and we'll take care of you on our side when you come back. Let's do it. I think it's people that understood the league and the style of play and the players. I don't think, from my perspective, I don't think it's fair to say the CBA had anything to do with it. I don't think they would have known anything that was going on the way the games were being played.
It's shocking in one respect that we had this, what I would say is a scandal, but Greg, I don't know how it's playing over there. It's not. You would think it would be rocking the sports world to have something like this, and yet I don't know whether it's the news cycle. I don't know whether it's all the political stuff that's going on. For whatever reason, it's really not. It's not hitting that hard. It's like people are aware of it, but it's not like they're outraged or they're calling for people's heads or any of that stuff. And is there any of that happening over in Asia?
Not at all. It was hot for about a day, and then it went away, and it was just kind of an interesting thing to talk about. And then it was yesterday's news the next day.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
it,
and if you look at Asia, my only understanding of something like this happening has been in Korea. About 10 years ago, a coach got caught match fixing in the KBL. And then, Korea's a little bit different because they do generate revenue on KBL games, on KBL gambling, but just on scores. I think on over under and scoring. But a coach did get in trouble, got caught influencing a score of a game, and he got banned for life or something like that. But
yeah.
China, I've not heard of anything. Japan, I've not heard of anything. And obviously, like you said, it's not been something that's been talked about really maybe a day or two after it happened or after it was announced.
By the way, the player at the heart of all this is actually a former Chicago Bulls player and played in the CBA, as you mentioned. Antonio Blakeney was the player, and apparently it was the classic case of he got involved, he did some illegal stuff, and then they were able to basically manipulate him to get other people involved, or that they were going to rat him out, and that's how this thing ultimately spread. Is my understanding. I just, the crazy part, Greg, and you played overseas, so maybe you have some insight on this. Is I look at he was getting like, I don't know, $10,000 or so for each fixing incident, and I'm thinking that's not enough money
Yeah.
for the risk. Like, why would you do that
Yeah.
for the risk? It just doesn't seem worth the potential downside.
Yeah, I guess, when you're going through it, you don't think like that. If you look at all the leagues in the world where you can really influence a player like Blakeney, all the leagues in the world where you could really influence a game, where you and the fixers on the other side could benefit. I don't think you hold the ball enough in Europe. I don't think your expectations to score or deliver numbers in Europe is enough. Japan, it's not enough. South Korea, it's not enough. But here, import guards have the ball in their hand a lot. They have to score 25 or 30 points a game, a little less now than maybe 5 or 10 years ago. But
Hmm.
still, their expectations to do a lot of things are very high here. And so I think the CBA probably is the opportune league for people to fix games. And work with players. I think it's probably ripe for the picking of all leagues. And then for him, maybe he thought he's in China. Whatever happens in the States doesn't apply. He can kind of be involved in this and still try to win and try his hardest. It's just maybe a quarter he doesn't score as many points as he would like to, and then nobody will really care or even find out. They won't even find out because I'm in China.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's what he was thinking. But certainly, there's a paper trail there that caught up to him.
It's funny that you say that because, and I immediately, when you said that, I thought of LeAngelo Ball, one of the Ball brothers, right? And I believe he was caught shoplifting on a trip in China with
Yep.
UCLA, right? And I do know there is a mentality, and actually, I probably as an American, when I was in my early 20s, and I would go to Mexico, you feel like you're in a different country, like the rules don't apply, or like you're on vacation or whatever, and you think you can get away with stuff, and it's actually the penalty may be greater, depending
Yeah.
on where you are, right? But I know that mentality can exist, where I'm in a different place, they don't know me here, like I don't speak the language, like it's you can get away with something, and I wonder whether some of that informed what Blakeney ultimately did. But I just, bottom line is, I will be interested to see where it goes. And again, you spent 17 years working for the NBA. Like the NBA now with tanking becoming an issue, and it largely because of its connection with gambling partners and all of that. Like it's becoming a very tricky dynamic. Sports in general, when I got into the business, like gambling was something that sports did not embrace at all. They tried to keep it at arm's length. And not that games weren't bet on or whatever, but the leagues themselves would not have any partnership with it at all. And now we've seen a change there. And I just I think it's a very slippery slope. And I'd be interested to see how the CBA going forward, what they do, and if the NBA is taking precautions when it comes to all that.
Yeah, I remember coming out. We were in China for 3 years during COVID. We didn't leave the country because it's so challenging to travel. First trip back to the States, I went and I was watching NBA with my father, and every commercial was like, "Who do you think's going to score the first points tonight? I think it's going to be Curry. I got my money on Curry. Who do you have your money on?" Next commercial, something similar, something. And I remember telling my father, I was like, "Man, this thing, it went from nothing to every single commercial is
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
or prelude to a commercial, or opening of a half, or whatever it was." And I was like, I'm not sure. This is not the target market that like is youth and is going to organically become NBA basketball fans. It's going to buy merchandise. It's probably going to go travel to watch their favorite player. It's a different demographic, which sure that's revenue,
Yeah.
and it helps grow your business, and that's important. But is that the best business or the best focus and that you really should be taking to grow this thing? And I'm not in that position to say yes or no, but it's certainly an observation I made after being away for a couple of years and coming back to the US and seeing everything that was going on.
Yeah. No, it's certainly a change, and we'll see going forward, how they're able to deal with that. I understand the revenue there; it's hard to resist, and the reality is that it does go on, and the argument can be made that that if you're bringing it above board, sort of like the NIL money in college, rather than under the table, then you have the opportunity to maybe control it a little bit more or create rules to guide you. But in the meantime, feels kind of Wild Westish. Like you got to get to that point where you figure out where are the holes, where are the flaws or the weaknesses that it's going to allow something untoward or illegal to happen. So we'll see ultimately where all that goes. All right. That does it for this episode of Pacific Rims. I want to thank Craig Brown for joining us. Greg, as always, tremendous insight, and we will do it again next week.
Have a good week.